The reality we live in can be a very strange place. Most of the time, fact being stranger than fiction. How will we ever start to understand this reality we live in unless we question everything? Join me and a guest as we unravel the mysteries of this reality, one topic at a time. This is Inquiries of Our Reality with Shayn Orin.
What is up, Inquirers, and welcome to the expanse of deep open-minded conversation. I'm the one they call Shane, and today for you guys, I have the most returned guest of the show to give a bit of an update on what's going on in the world and give you some insight on what's going on behind the scenes of the world stage. But before we get into this fascinating conversation today, just a couple of quick news and updates. First and foremost, coming this week for anybody that's been catching Bizarre Inquiries Live, our next live will be on July 3rd at 7:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That is this coming Thursday for anybody that didn't catch it. And if anybody has any clips, articles, questions, any of that they would like to submit for that show, get them to me before then. But if not, we will, of course, pass them along to the next show. And next piece is that the t-shirt giveaway and survey is still up and running. So if anybody is interested in possibly winning any free t-shirt of their choice off of the Open Minds Media merch store, all you guys have to do is fill out a quick 10-question survey. It's all your guys' opinions on things, a bunch of different opinions to help the show grow and improve. So if you guys don't mind taking that few extra minutes to take that survey, even on a personal level, I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. And as far as the Patreon goes, for anybody that hasn't caught that on the last couple episodes, it is back up and running with some recently adjusted tiers and some new benefits, of course. I tried to simplify it a little bit, so now there is only the ad-free and early access tier, and then a full access tier. And with that full access tier, some of the new benefits that you guys will get, of course, you guys are still going to get the premium video episodes of the show, and I'm going to start deleting some of the old ones off of YouTube, so you guys will only be able to find those, of course, on the Open Minds Media Patreon page. There's also going to be extended episodes of shows. There's going to be watch parties. There's also a research library that you guys will get access to. A lot of cool new stuff going on over there, so if you guys don't mind taking a few minutes to check it out, I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. And while you're checking that out, if you guys aren't already listening to my other show, Bizarre Encounters with Shayn Orin, we've been doing a lot of interesting deep dives over there that people have been enjoying, such as Orin's recent Alligator Man one, and I recently did one on Spring Hill Jack. So if you guys are looking for some additional content to fill your work week up, give you guys something to listen to, don't forget to go and check out Bizarre Encounters with Shayn Orin. And one last thing before we get into the show, if anyone is interested in being a guest on the show, sharing their experiences or encounters, or contacting me for any reason whatsoever, you guys can do so through email, which is inquiriesofourrealitypodcast@outlook.com. Or you guys can also call and text me on the Open Minds Media hotline. That number is 313-364-1551. And if you guys happen to miss that, it is available down in the show notes. And every single thing that I mention and will mention throughout the show is all available on the link tree, which is also available down in those show notes. And with that, let's get into the show. Please welcome to the show a man who I feel needs no introduction because he's been a guest on the show so many times. Please welcome to the show, Charlie Robinson.
Hello, we're back. Let's do it.
Say, that's the only way you can really say it, because we talked last time that every couple months we're going to have to do an update on all the craziness going on in the world, talk about all the current conspiracies. So here we are for yet another installment of the craziness going on in the world, man.
What's happened since we talked last? Like now just only maybe World War III, that's all.
I don't even know where you want to start to try to break this one apart, but I think last time we talked was right when Trump was really starting to come into office. They're really starting to do stuff. So it's been a little while. There's a lot of updates since last time.
Yeah, he's been a disappointment. I mean, the victories are like Ross Ulbricht getting out of prison and being positive on like crypto regulation and things like that. And then I've run out of things. National Institute for Democracy, which he said he was going to close, but didn't actually close. USAID, kind of exposing that, but not really actually closing it. So everything that he does, it's if you just listen to what he says, you would think he's doing a great job. But then when you actually follow up on what happened about the thing that he said he did such a great job with, what you find out is that nothing changed. You go, well, USAID, he closed USAID. And you go, no, he didn't. He moved it under the State Department. Well, he pulled their funding, but he put it back. It's like, so that didn't even get really changed, except that I guess people are talking about it, and it threw kind of a monkey wrench in their whole thing. But, you know, he ran on a platform of being anti-war, and he's not. He's Israel's bitch, and that's evident and embarrassing. And I think becoming obvious to everybody nowadays. And so, and it's one thing if it's just like you give them preferential treatment because you're their bitch. It's another thing when you're going to start World War III and millions of people are going to die as a result of it. Like, no, I'm sorry. You have to stand up and put your priorities in a different order. Because what I think Trump has been a disappointment in that regard. I mean, he's given people a reason to say, see, we said he was going to be terrible, and he is. I mean, I personally kind of held out a little bit of hope. I thought maybe because it was his final term and he doesn't have to think about running again, and because, you know, they tried to put him in prison and brought a bunch of bullshit lawsuits against him and tried to, you know, shoot at him or whatever that whole thing was, or, you know, like you'd think that at least there'd be like the petty revenge factor, that he'd just go scorched earth because he could. There's really nothing they can do about it. And yet he hasn't. So even like our Trump revenge fantasies are just dog shit. Because, you know, he's never going to really do it. It's all you'd be in jail and then no handcuffs.
It's the usual thing, man, that we get to this point with every single candidate where they seem like they're going to do something good, and then it gets to a point where everybody who voted for him is just trying to justify their actions. And it seems like we've kind of gotten there at this point that no matter what or who comes in, they always claim that they're going to do all these things that, of course, never actually happen. And like we kind of talked about last time, you kind of have to take some of the victories, but as it seems, none of those victories ended up actually turning out to be victories. So it's just continuously the same place that we're in with no matter what candidate. It doesn't matter if they're Republican, if they're Democrat. It's all about pick your poison, but it all inevitably ends up in the same place.
Totally. It's a choose your own adventure book where if you'd chosen the Kamala Harris adventure, then you would have different things that would infuriate you. You know, so it would be more gender stuff, and maybe there'd be somebody who's trans and in charge of the, some agency. I don't know. I mean, maybe things would just be woke and weird and cringy and stupid and annoying instead of bloody and deadly and terrifying. And, so it's like if they want to get something done that if you examine it objectively would be massively detrimental to the Republicans, then you have to have a Republican president sell it, because at least that way you'll get his base to work against its own self-interest and support the thing that they shouldn't. They're never going to get the opponents to support it. But this is how you get really horrible stuff done to the Republican side of things, is you bring in a guy like Trump. So when in the aftermath of all of this, when you look back on what happened in the next 3.5 years of Trump, let's say he makes it all the way through, and you go back in retrospect and look at what his administration did, I guarantee you it will disproportionately screw over his base more so than the lefties that he went after. Because he's in there designed to convince them to vote against their own self-interest. And he can do that because they love him and trust him, and it's MAGA, and it's, as you said, like they're just trying to justify why they voted for this guy over and over again. And he's going to back them into a corner where they become hostages and they get Stockholm syndrome and start voting for their captor simply because they're terrified, or they think that this time it'll be different. I mean, I feel like we were talking about this before, like how like these people are going to be in for a rude awakening when they realize that they've been had by the ultimate con man, Donald Trump. And I say that as somebody who despises the left. I mean, there's no more obnoxious group than the Democrat hard left weirdos. But Donald Trump has a way of disappointing. And this last whatever he was doing with Iran, and unless he's playing 6D chess, man, which I really am having a hard time believing, and that he bombed an empty facility just so that he could say he bombed something, wink, wink, and get the Israelis off his back. I don't know if I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt on that one. I see this guy as a complicit component in a genocide in Gaza, and I see him as a guy who is helping to kickstart World War III. And it's like, of all the things you could say about him, you know, he's a rapist. He said grab him by the pussy. You know, all the ways he's been abrasive and has irritated lefties across the world. The worst thing in the world you could ever say about Donald Trump is that he started World War III. So I'd love to hear them, you know, now they've got a legitimate reason to be mad about him. I'd love to hear it because of that, but it won't be. It'll be something petty. It'll be you know, because they think he cheats on his taxes or something stupid like that. That's why we have to protest him. We have to impeach Donald Trump because he you know, filled out this form wrong in his tax return. No, go after him because he committed a fucking war crime by trying to start World War III. You want to really go after the guy? He just gave you a reason to run him through as a war criminal for launching an unprovoked attack on civilian infrastructure in a foreign country without declaring a war through Congress and bypassing all that stuff. You don't get to just do that. I realize it's been done. It's been being done for the last 20 years, but it's all illegal. It doesn't mean that it's okay. And the fact that he's doing this and the left is like, we just got to get this guy. He fucking handed it to you on a silver platter. Go get him. Get him impeached for this if you want. But they won't, because they're deeply unserious people that just want to get out in the streets and talk about, you know, their pronouns. It's just the most annoying time to be paying attention.
Dude, even on the right side, all I've been hearing on the news is justification why, it was the most precise thing the U.S. could have possibly done. He did it with such ambition. He did it with this. Right. So it's like nobody's really tearing it apart for what it is. You got one side that's actually remaining relatively quiet for the most part, surprisingly, and then the other side's trying to justify it. But I feel like it also kind of plays in with all of this riot mentality that's been going on in the U.S., or at least trying to start these riot mentalities that the left is kind of like picking their battles and sitting back. And it's like they've already used up all their energy on whatever was going on in LA, because of course you get mixed interpretations of whatever that happened to have been. But I definitely think it's the usual thing where it was incited by somebody to try to prove a point. And then right after that, you have the No Kings riot, or not riots, but No Kings protests that I think they were trying to turn into riots, but it just for whatever reason didn't push to that point. But I want to get kind of your breakdown and beliefs on what's been going on with these, like this chaotic time in the U.S., but also leading into other chaotic conflict across the other side of the planet. I think you might have hit something on your mic. I think you muted it. Oh, there it goes.
Yeah, I did. I'm sorry. I just put out an episode that called Summer of Love 2025, revisited. And just looking, and what's funny about it was that I recorded it, and then I had, and I did it in advance. It was about 3 weeks in advance before it was going to go out. And I had to re-record it 2 weeks later because the stuff that I said that was going to happen had already happened. And it was like outdated. I was like, all right, well, I've got to redo this because I was like, they're going to be out on the streets rioting. Like, it's coming. I don't know where exactly it's going to start, but it'll be, related to immigration, and Sam Tripoli called it out actually on Rogan's show in 2023, which was great, talking about how that was the transition was going to be into immigration riots and things like that. And, and so I saw it coming, not because like I'm Nostradamus or anything like that, but it's like it's summer and that's riot season. You're not going to riot in December, are you?
It's not going to look as chaotic. You're not going to have as many good pictures. You got to have everybody hot, sweaty, passionate, into the fight.
Out of school. Yeah. A little bit more casual at work in some regards. So yeah, there's definitely a time for that. And then you see it being manufactured by these NGOs that have like a vested interest in keeping people fighting. And I just think of it like, in some regard, it's dog training for the public, because you're getting them used to being out in the streets as a way of showing their disdain for authority. Well, that doesn't do anything. Except it gets you out into the public where you're on camera now. You're like in the database as being somebody who's out in the streets, being angry. Some of the people are paid to be there, for sure. Some of the people are curious and they just kind of walked into it. But, the January 6th people were curious and walked into it as well. And you see what happens when they turn the government against you and weaponize it and decide to make something out of nothing. So you want to stay as far away from these astroturfed events as possible, because they're entirely traps designed to either manipulate you through the media component of it and show it a certain way and edit it from a certain angle and make it look one way. Make it look bigger than it is, make it look like it's smaller than it is. The mainstream media downplays a lot of these things. Oh, look, there's, 6 people standing around. This isn't much of, so you're going to be part of the show if you go to one of those things, whether you want to or not. So don't, my advice to people is do not go to these things. You're not changing anything. This is an exercise in facing the wall and screaming as loud as you can, and then someone saying, "Do you feel better now?"
Adult temper tantrums. I
guess.
Literal adult temper tantrums.
Yeah. Okay, now that you're done yelling, we're going to go back to running the world, because we don't care what you think. In case you haven't noticed, we hate your guts and wish you guys were all dead. So why would we listen to you think this is a suggestion box? Fine. Go out there in the streets and tell us and protest about what you're mad about. It's not going to change. It's not going to change the agenda. So, but it gets people to feel like they're participating, and they feel like they've done something, and then they feel fulfilled, and then that's the extent of it. That's where it goes. So I wrote that episode and said, we're going to have these riots. They're just going to be so fake, but they're going to be happening. And then we had that, and then we had the No Kings, like you said. And that is like, my initial thought of that was, well, if we really did have a king, wouldn't he ban the ability to protest against the king?
It's contradicting itself right off of the title.
What I mean? Like, I'm pretty sure that comes with the monarchy. Like, you don't get to speak out against it. So the fact that you're having a franchise event with all these happening in 1,000 locations simultaneously with Walton money, it feels kind of phony to me. And I mean, like, the marketing major in me just starts going, I don't love this. I don't love the messaging. It doesn't make any sense. There aren't kings. It'd be one thing if you were protesting against an actual king, but like, you're protesting immigration stuff with Donald Trump. Like, we can show you Obama's numbers. He deported 2 million people. Like, what are we talking about here? That's more king-like behavior than what Donald Trump is doing. I don't know. So it and then they said, oh, well, we're going to switch the messaging and we're not going to call it no kings. I think it was something else that they've changed it to. And they just want it to be sort of, it's more like no rulers or something. I'm like, you mean like anarchy? Is that what you're saying? Just come out and say it. No rulers, not no rules. This is the anarchapulco in me coming out when I start hearing these people. They're so close to describing what they want to say. But and if I were to describe what it is these people think they want, they wouldn't like the name that goes along with it, because they've always associated anarchy with Molotov cocktails and burning tires, and it's just not that. But they want it to be that. It's just not.
Hold on tight, guys. We'll be right back after this brief commercial break. And now back to the show. That's why they try to throw up the messaging with that, to try to make it look like it's something totally different than what it is, because realistically they act like that's what they want. No kings, no slaves, no masters. But on the flip side, it's like they want to try to live off of government assistance. So it's like that whole idea completely contradicts itself, and it doesn't necessarily make sense. And again, like you said, the main thing that they like to throw at other people and try to state that they're being is exactly what they want as far as their political system goes. They want this, everybody's equal, everybody gets everything that they need out of the system. And again, the one thing that you have to relate that to is communism, and that's the main thing that they're trying to say that everybody else is. It's like you point the finger, but realistically they should be pointing it back at themselves half the time.
It's so hard to take the argument seriously when they talk about socialism and communism and how it's never been done right and things like this. It's just a frustrating. You'll eventually have that conversation. Much in the same way if you've ever attended an Acapulco, you will have the conversation about, well, who will build the roads? That's the big joke, is that's the first question anybody says when you say no government. And so you've got to have these conversations. I don't know, man. I don't know if it's better to be paying attention to this stuff and be frustrated, or to be like some of my friends who are, I think, completely asleep. Some of the dudes I've known a long, long time, like 100%, like they don't know that the mainstream media is lying to them, like that much asleep. What does it feel to you kind of like a burden to know like what's going on? Because there's a lot happening, right? And it feels like sometimes it would just be easier to believe the official story, to take the blue pill, as they say. Not that I ever would, but the more I know, the more I don't want to know. Somebody posted this picture on X, and it was this empty swimming pool with white tiles in it, and it's a very specific looking one. And the guy said, "Are you this red-pilled?" And my response was, "Unfortunately, yes." Unfortunately, I know exactly what that pool is. That's kind of my point, is that there is you can go places and learn things that you can't unknow about the way the world works. And it's really dark sometimes.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
You just filled in as a guest host on OBDM. I watched that. Congratulations to you. That's awesome to see you do that.
Big honor, dude. One of my favorite shows.
It's my favorite podcast, man. And I've got 3 of my own, but OBDM is my number 1 favorite podcast. I never miss an episode. And for some reason I always, if I know I have a trip coming up, I like to not watch it and just download a couple episodes so that I have it on the plane. And there will always be like a point where I'm on an airplane somewhere, just laughing to myself like a crazy person because I'm listening to OPD. I love the show. But my point is, like, we know how dark things are. However, we've found a way to communicate the information in a way that is less scary and maybe even in some cases kind of funny. Like, maybe not ha-ha funny, but like ironic funny or creepy funny. But like, this is I've got to tell you, this is what we did you ever see the movie Jones Plantation?
I still have to watch it. I was planning on watching it this weekend, actually, because you sent it to me last week.
Yeah, so the director of Jones Plantation, Drew Treglia, he left after for his next project. He took Mr. Jones, who's legal man from X. If you follow him, it's a U.S. Law Review, I think, at U.S. Law Review, but he goes by Legal Man. But his name is Lee Gallman, but when you smash it together, it's Legal Man. And he also happens to be a lawyer. And he also happens to be, by his own admission, he's a fucking great guy, by the way. By his own admission, he's not black-pilled. He's cyanide-pilled. so like he comes in with like it's all coming down sort of mentality, and the two of them get together and do this new project called Barnum World, which is a mockumentary where they follow they follow this guy Natty Jones, who's legal man, who plays this character, this Hollywood producer, kind of scumbaggy guy. I mean, I don't know. He's sort of likable in the sense that you don't think he's lying to you. He's kind of telling you how it is, but you know, he's been around. He's explaining the game. And so anyway, the point of the mockumentary is that I'm this I'm the director listens to Macroaggressions, and he said that he envisioned the interviewer of Natty Jones to be me interviewing him, like I was having him, you know, like I finally got the big interview with this guy. And so he had me just do the voiceover as narrator and also as the off-camera interviewer. So I'm not in the movie. I mean, I'm in the movie, but I'm not, you never actually see me. But these, like, Drew has a hardcore understanding of what's going on. You can't find this sort of guy in Hollywood. You know, Drew's in Arizona making independent films on a shoestring budget that are fucking amazing, like Jones Plantation. Got to see Jones Plantation. Anyway, jonesplantationfilm.com is the website, and there's a trailer on there. You can just watch the trailer. It's 2 minutes. Watch the trailer, and if you don't want to watch it after that, that's cool. But I think if you watch the trailer, you'll be like, damn, this looks like a good movie. It's based on Larkin Rose, who's a huge prominent member of the anarchist community, who wrote a 13-minute cartoon short video called Jones Plantation. And Drew, the director, loved it. And I had seen it. It came out years ago. And I remember I'd watched it 3 or 4 times over the years. It's really great. It's not about slavery. It's about government. And at Anarchapulco, those two guys ran into each other and started talking. And Drew said, "Hey, you should turn that into, or we should turn that into a movie, like a feature film." Larkin was like, "Oh my God, like that's a great idea." So they sat down and wrote the screenplay for Jones Plantation. And when they were raising money for that, Jeff Berwick and I had just put out Controlled Demolition of the American Empire. And he said to me, would it be okay if we used the funds from the sale of the book to finance Jones Plantation? And I said, yeah, absolutely. That'd be great. And so I knew they were working on it, and we knew when they were filming it. and we were sending them money as we had it, and it was, because you're kind of running on a shoestring budget. But Drew did a great job with Jones Plantation. And so then when he said like, hey, I got this next project, like, would you be interested? I was like, absolutely. Like whatever. So it's out now. It's available. It's on YouTube. It's free. It's on Rumble. Just look Barnum World. You'll find it under Drew Media. And, I like, we have to connect people with this information however we can. And for some people, it's going to be like, I'm going to read Bill Cooper's book, they're just going to open it up, sit down and read the book. Some people, they're 5-minute Greg Reese videos. That's about the attention span they've got. They just need that information real quick, 5 minutes, boom. So, and for some people, 90-minute mockumentary on Natty Jones, this producer who's going to lay out and explain to you what the game is. So it's so funny. It works for our crowd. It works for normies. We screened it live in Phoenix last Saturday of May. Had a couple hundred people there. Then did a Q&A afterwards with me, Drew, and Legal Man. And then took everybody to a bar down the street and drank with the audience till like 2:00 in the morning. And the response was fantastic. So, and they raised money to do this one through Indiegogo. And in the description, they said, we are going to, because you're donating money, just donating it with no expectation of getting it back. We are putting the movie out for free. So it's free. Check it out.
Honestly, that's probably one of the best ways to try to get a message across is through comedy, because it seems like with a lot of these podcasts, it's like they're dark messages. So the only way that you can really get it out is by kind of making light of it to a certain extent. It's just a hard game you got to play where it's like certain things you can joke about. Like you can make a bunch of pedophile jokes about politicians all day, but you just can't go too far in depth with that stuff. But
you got to know your audience. And you got to make sure you're good at delivering that punchline. I would leave that up to, but yeah, I like the idea of, and I did this a bit with the Octopus book because it's so heavy. You know what I mean? Like there's only so much you can talk about Einsatzgruppen, German kill squads without feeling like, like this is like, it feels so heavy. So I had to infuse humor in there. And some of the quotes I used, I had a couple great Rogan quotes, George Carlin, Bill Hicks. I felt like the comedians could see the game from either they could see it from a different perspective or they could explain it in a way that connected with people on a different level. And they were allowed to say it, like the court jesters, right? They were allowed to make fun of the king. The comedians sometimes deliver the truth. I mean, George Carlin is like, to think how incredibly based he was to be at that era, to know the sort of shit that he knew.
I'm surprised he didn't end up unaliving himself, at some point, just because of what he was talking about. Like he was way ahead of his time with a lot of stuff.
way ahead. And I think that, comedy has always been a great way to deliver tough messages. It's like, and in fact, there's a quote in the Octopus by Joe Rogan talking about the Daily Show. And he said, I always liked Jon Stewart with the Daily Show because he would give me a story that was a real story that I could understand, that was important, but there'd be a joke in there somewhere, so it was a way for him to get information delivered to him in a manner that he liked. And so I feel like that's kind of where we are with our work, or at least that's where I am with my work, from books to podcasts to Activist Post, which is like a daily news source, to now the movie. And and a mini documentary that they did with about Union of the Unwanted as well, which is a funny one. There's a guy named T. Snyder. Do you know Tease? Have you crossed paths with him? Conspiracy Synergy.
Yeah, it sounds really familiar. I don't think we've actually had a conversation on the show, but I know I've heard that name before.
He's a fantastic director. He's done like feature films that are amazing. He did one on a lady who sits with people when they're at the end of their life, like not assisted suicide, but something similar. It's very, very sad. Anyway, Tease is a fantastic director. He's doing all these mini documentaries. And he just put one out that people can find at conspiracysynergy.com. And it's called Vagabond Union. So part of it was Last American Vagabond, Ryan Christian, and what was going on in his studio. And then the other part was the Third Eye Carnival in Nashville. I was there with Sam Tripoli, and since they had half of the Union of the Unwanted, Tease took us out and said, come sit in the swing set. So we're in this like porch outside on a Saturday afternoon. It's pouring rain. It's me and Sam Tripoli. We're like bundled up, and there's this dog that has had 8 puppies right down at our feet. So T sets up his camera to film us and mics us all up and everything like that. And when you watch the mini doc, there's a part where Sam Tripoli and I are both sitting next to each other on a swing in the rain, with each of us with puppies in our lap, rubbing our puppies and talking to T's. It looks so crazy, but he did a great job with it. He did a great job with it.
Hold on tight, guys. We'll be right back after this brief commercial break. But in the meantime, don't forget to follow Inquiries of Our Reality on Instagram and Facebook for show updates and the weekly live schedules. And don't forget to check out Open Minds Media on YouTube and TikTok, and tap that bell icon while you're there to get notified anytime we happen to go live. And if you'd like to join the discussion with like-minded individuals, become a member of the OMM Discord community today. All of those links are available off the link tree in the show description. And now back to the show. Speaking of actually going into a totally different range, and I want to see what your opinions are on this, talking about things that you just kind of have to make jokes about. The whole thing with the riots recently, that the main image that gets portrayed is the dude that's holding the Mexican flag, and everybody is so pissed off about it, and all I can do is just sit back and laugh, because I'm like, don't you guys see just like the plain obviousness that like this is perfectly placed? Like, again, like at a certain point, it's like, not that you become so red-pilled that it's just like all you can do is laugh, because you just see the obviousness of everything, and it kind of drives you crazy sometimes, because like you were kind of mentioning, it's like you'll see people talking about politics, left or right, and you'll see that they're just repeating these like key phrases, and they don't actually know what they're talking about. There's no honest emotion behind what they're talking about, and you just sit back and you're just watching these people get pissed off about, oh, this guy's waving this Mexican flag, he shouldn't even be in here, why is he waving this flag if he wants to be in this country? And it's like, do you not see the humor in this? Like, the one image they show, that's the image. Like, there's a reason for that.
And they can't see the psyop for what it is. They don't understand the game, and they don't, when there's that perfectly framed picture that goes out, boom, that's like the symbol of it all. That's 100% by design. Like that is psychological operations 101, like working. And
I think Magic Mike even pointed out that there was spray paint when I went on OBDM. There was spray paint on the back of the car that said like Evola 95 or something like that, and he was mentioning that it's supposed to be a reference to like the Age of Chaos. I don't know the exact specifications of this, but I remember there being some other symbolism within the words that were written on the back of the car too.
Well, this is the thing about events like this. Maybe not so much this, because this one wasn't really like a false flag, but like having a conversation with Ole Damagard. Do you know who he is?
Yeah.
OG, like false flag guy. I had the opportunity to sit and drink beers with him all night long in Mexico, which was till 3:00 in the morning, talking about Operation Gladio. It was one of the greatest nights of my life. there are certain things that when you start to look for them in these events, and like I said, I don't think the riots are maybe the best example of this, but you see them everywhere. As an example, he said, whenever there's a mass shooting or a bombing or something like that, look for photographs that the press puts forward that either have shoes or bicycles. And I was like, okay. And after that, I started looking, and everywhere I looked were shoes and bicycles. And it's like psychologically anchoring you to assume that there used to be a person in those shoes and there used to be a little girl on that bicycle, but the bicycle's there by itself because I guess the girl's dead. So you go, oh shit, it's all fake. And Ole's like, he's like as fake as a traveling concert. And so we talked about NATO's role as the traveling false flag circus that goes from NATO air base to NATO air base, conducting mass shootings, false flags, and then when the press covers it, the images that they use are always have bicycles and shoes. And so then it's like when the news comes out, you're getting one version, your friend is getting a totally normie version. But you're going, oh, okay, I know what that means. It's like if you saw 33 everywhere, you'd be like, oh, put the 33 again. Seriously, you're going to do this? I know what this means. They don't care.
Dude, I had a recent one with ISIS, actually, because I'm sure you probably heard about it because No Agenda talked about it. But in Warren, Michigan, which is exactly where I live, there was this supposed attempted terrorist attack from some teenager who was involved with ISIS. And he went to go and try to bomb this building. And they ended up shutting it down before anything happened. And my dad, as we've talked about on the show, is one of the people that's everything they hear on the news. They're like, oh, my God, there was going to be a terrorist attack. They're going to start World War III. Like, this is my dad's regular mentality because of watching the news all the time.
Yeah.
Me, I sit back for a few days and I try to watch what's happening. I'm like, all right, I hear the keywords here, ISIS. So I know that there's some type of government involvement here in some form. So I started looking into it after a couple days, and it's like, all right, they have this kid on the internet. It's the usual thing. He starts doing some weird stuff on the internet. All of a sudden, these guys fly in. They're like, oh, do you know how to make bombs? Do you know how to make explosives? Have you ever tried doing this with a drone? Down to the point where apparently the group that was involved with them, I think it was the FBI, actually flew drones over this building.
I guarantee you it was the FBI.
Yeah, to actually give this guy like a map of what this building looked like. The kid shows up, he's about to do the attack. They stop it down and they go, we stopped ISIS again. It's like, all right, there was no ISIS involved. There was a kid and you told him that you were ISIS. So he thought he was talking to ISIS, and then he tried to conduct this attack. You stop him and go, we stopped ISIS. It's like
this is why I say it pays to have a good sense of humor. Because otherwise, this would make you want to scream, right? That they have targeted mentally handicapped kids who are, on the spectrum, talking to a Fed in a chat room and talking about this, and next thing you know, they're trying to get them to build a bomb. And, the parents caught them in this one situation, and I think it took the FBI to court, and I think they won, but they were like, he was like an adult son, I think 19 years old, but like severely autistic, and should in no way, shape, or form should be talking to glowing federal agents online about explosives of any kind. And yet here we are, it's getting talked into it. So what? So that they can show their boss that they're doing something and that they got this big bust and send some poor kid up just think of the mentality that goes into normalizing that kind of behavior. And that's why I keep saying that the FBI is the largest domestic terrorist organization operating inside America. I have no reason to ever change my mind on that. I've seen nothing but them acting like terrorists, acting like cartel members. They are the American Gestapo, and I worry, I worry that Trump is going to use them. I don't know, man. I'm so distrustful that the FBI. I mean, if Trump is totally controlled by Israel, therefore Israel then controls the FBI too. It just feels like a Gestapo, and they're talking about like a very slippery slope with hate speech and anti-Semitism speech and things that you can and can't say. And I don't know. I've just been noticing it lately, and I'm hoping it's nothing, but I get a bad feeling about it.
Do you think this is maybe a new form of like mind control in the aspect of trying to create sleeper agents? Because I think we talked about it last time on the show with the whole Trump idea, that it was like basically ushering in the idea of like this tech future. And everybody talks about this whole idea behind like the Minority Report, that they're going to try to track crimes. But I think people are kind of looking at it in a more sci-fi mentality than what it actually is. I think what they're actually creating is like algorithms on everything that you search, everything that you look up, the type of things that you're into. So it's not that they're actively creating these profiles, but rather they have AI or algorithms creating these profiles. And once they have these top notches on this profile, like, all right, this person's looked up this, they go, all right, this is somebody that we can start to use and start to push them into a different direction. So instead of having this whole idea that they would have like a sleeper agent where it was somebody that they mentally mess with them for a while, they threw them back in the real world, then they have this like code word that just snaps them into place and they just go and do this action. I think it's moved past that to the point where it's now, they have these key profiles on people. They know what type of person somebody is. So then in turn, they can go in and say, all right, do this. And they can do all these little moving around sleeper agent aspects without actually having that touch or control of it. It's a matter of like creating a Minority Report on a profile on what the person is potentially capable of. And then they're going to use that as an argument in court one day when they say, all right, we didn't incite this person to do this. They clearly had all these check boxes. They were a ticking time bomb. We were only just doing what we needed to do to see if they were going to take that extra step. So it's like they have their protocol to be able to pretend like they have no tie or attachment to it while they're actually using these people for their own agenda.
You could curate somebody's social media feed with AI if you had a profile on them, real detailed one. You could just, it'd be like having an instruction manual on how to make somebody feel a variety of different ways. You could make them infuriated. I noticed like a month ago that for whatever reason, and it just started one day on my X account, and I kept seeing like groups of black boys, like teenagers, like beating up one like white dorky freshman who, I don't know, looked at him wrong. And I would see like a video of that. And then like later in the day, I'd see another one. And then the next day I'd see 3. And then the day after that, I'd see 5, and I was like, I just kept going. I was like, I'm not even watching them. I guess maybe I'm noticing it as it's going by, but I'm not clicking on it and like stopping and like saying like, oh, I'll watch the whole thing. No, I wasn't even doing any of that. I was like, it wants me to hate young black men. But I say that because I was aware of it. I was like, oh shit, I feel like it's trying to manipulate me. So then you can go in there and say like, not interested in this post, and you can kind of curate it a little bit your own way. And I had to go in there and do that because I was just getting shown fight after fight after, like, I was like, dude, I have seen like 15 fight videos today that I didn't ask for that were being served up to me. And so I wonder as they build that profile, where they can just crank your social media so that like all you see is Fight Club, you know, and then you go out into the wild and you start interacting with people and your whole mindset is like Fight Club, you know? So I think it's a soft form of mind control. You know, I think that Facebook has spent a bunch of money on like tracking your pupils and things like that, and trying to biometric, you know, read your face and you know, all that. It's getting fed into their big computers to do God knows what with. So you know, I think that there's a lot of information they're trying to gather from you.
I mean, just to expand on that a bit too, I've definitely noticed the same thing on my feeds with an expansion of a lot of anti-Semitic stuff, of course. And then mixed into that, there's two weird things that I want to kind of draw attention to. One, there's these videos of like dark web stuff where it's like somebody getting murdered, but you know, they kind of blur out the main area as somebody gets into it. Yeah. And then there's also a mix of, you know, you'll see like a lot of like pretty girls that are like half naked. So I think it's part of a psychological operation.
I got that. Can I get that?
But I think that's all part of the psychological operation, that they got you looking at pictures of another race fighting you. They have the anti-Semitic stuff dwindled in with these videos of people getting murdered. And then on top of that, they're also showing you these females. So it's like they're activating the reptilian part of your brain. They're associating these two people with these violent scenes. So it's like you don't think all these different things are connected, but I think they're purposefully connected. And it seems like, you know, people that are more right-leaning, that's what the majority of your feed is. It seems like most right-leaning people, it's a lot of like Jewish jokes and stuff like that. So I'm curious what's happening with people on the left with their feeds. I'm curious if they're getting dwindled in like people from the right, and then they're also getting these murder videos. So they're instilling this idea of associating these people with somebody getting murdered, and it's creating a subconscious like mind control over people where they're associating these people with violent scenes.
Oh, I'm sure their feed is a mess. Just an absolute concoction of horse shit and Trump and white nationalism and MAGA and oh my God and
bunch of Nazis.
I mean, they I bet they've got I bet they've got everybody like riled up over there. You know what I have found to counterbalance the heaviness of all the insanity that is on my feed, I have taken to following why you should have a raccoon video, that channel. I follow that because it's always showing me cool raccoons.
Bigfoot vlogs, that one's always a good joke.
a couple of following otter families around. So there's one that's like Otter News, and they put videos. So I'm trying to like offset that stuff with cat videos and things like that to keep me from jumping out of my office window.
Dude, even trying to counteract it, I don't know if you get this stuff, dude, but it's like a weird double side to the feed where I'll have all of this stuff that's like hatred towards the woke side. And then on the flip side, the advertisements will be things like join this, LGBTQT dating app, join this app. And then you hit not interested. And these apps keep coming back up. So talk about like, again, trying to instill hate on people. It's like, all right, are they trying to show you fuck these people, but here's a way to connect with them? Like they're trying to say like, all right, you don't like these people, so we're going to shove it at you so that maybe you can even go and interact with these people and show your hatred to them on this site now.
That's really funny.
I'm curious if on the flip side, they'll get like Christian Mingle in their web feed. So it'll be like, you know, all this hate towards, the right. And then next they get Christian Mingle underneath it. Like, right. Just go over there. See what happens when you jump onto that site. Just try it.
Totally. Here you go. Let's get these. Let's get the peasants fighting with each other more and more.
Hold that thought. We'll be right back. But if you don't like hearing the ads, then I have a solution for you. You can get ad-free and early access to this show and Bizarre Encounters with Shayn Orin on the Open Minds Media Patreon for just $2 a month. That's less than a bag of chips, and it's a great way to support the show and all the hard work behind it. And if you're interested in bonus content, merch store discounts, premium video versions of the show, along with some other perks, then you guys can become a member of the OMM family today. Or you guys can give it a try with a 7-day free trial. The link for that is available down in the show notes. Now let's get back into it. But I mean, even within that though, like that causes even more anger towards the other side. So it's just this constant area of just constant turmoil. And my curiosity then it comes into this is, it seems like the LGBTQT thing is starting to like die out as far as how much is getting pushed in your face. But on the flip side, the migration thing is what's really getting pushed into your face. So it's like, if we have this idea that it seems like we're trying to push towards this war that's about to happen, why is it that they're creating so much chaos within the country when you think that they'd be trying to do this thing where everybody unites under like nationalism? But I've been trying to kind of break down what the possible facade is of this. And there's a couple different solutions I've came up with. Either one, we've talked about it, I think earlier on the show, this whole idea about starting a holy war. And there's a lot of these like weird premonitions about there being a holy war that's going to start World War III and everything. So if you're bringing in all these people from South America, I mean, a lot of them are very Christian based in their beliefs. So maybe you're trying to load up the country with these Christian-based people. But on the flip side of it, it's like you have these people fighting your other Christian-based people in the country that you need at some point to join together if you want to actually fight this, quote, holy war overseas. So it's like, where is the end objective here? I'm trying to figure out like why they're trying to start stuff overseas while also creating chaos here, when you would assume that they would want to create nationalism in the country to push everybody overseas. Because that's usually what happens. That's what we had, during, 9/11, for example. You unite everybody, so everybody wants to fight. But if you have everybody fighting here, I mean, maybe the facade is, I don't want to fight here anymore. I'd rather just go over there and fight. Like, I don't know how to. It seems like we're just in this age of chaos, and I'm just trying to make some sense out of why there's so much shit going on. I mean, it's probably the usual smokescreen, but I'm trying to connect this piece to this piece, and I can't come up with a fully logical explanation on where these two things connect, even though I know they connect.
Well, I always wondered if they were going to make some sort of offer with the military age fighting men that they keep talking about coming across the southern border and say, join our military or whatever it is, like a version of our military, and serve, and we'll make you a citizen. So if you were to do that, then theoretically you have cannon fodder. You have a bunch of non-American, possibly more than likely non-English speaking people who you can ship overseas to any of your bullshit wars and throw them in there, or use them to drive trucks or whatever as infrastructure. You could, I see that as an offer, as a valuable offer.
That might justify them to the part of the right, though, because if they go and they fight a war and they come back, maybe they would be a little bit more like, yeah, you know what, you've earned your place here. You deserve to be here now. So that might get rid of that turmoil on the flip side.
Oh, for sure. And I would suspect that if you were some dude who came across the southern border from Guatemala and you got shipped to Iran to get into a war and you lived and came back, you'd probably have a different perspective on things. You'd probably be a Republican too, or you'd be, you'd have a totally different mindset. I don't know, man. I had my friend Christian Yordnev, who's my certified health practitioner, but also works with me on Activist Post. He was like, bro, what do you think about the chances of World War III? And I said, honestly, I think it's happening. I think we're in like the early stages of it. Because it feels like when you look back on these other massive wars, there was always an economic collapse that was just on its way until this war came, and then it just sort of all got blended together. And we have, by almost everybody's account, some financial reckoning coming. And what that looks like and when it starts to be determined. But a reordering of the financial system is coming. So I worry that World War III gets started in part to cover for this impending financial reordering, or at least provide cover for the bankers and the justification to reimagine the financial system in the midst of World War III. You know what I mean? Or in the aftermath of World War III. So that's the thing, is it's very perverse incentive structures that make these people want to go to war and make that to them be the best option, as opposed to where we would be, the default is, how do we not start a war? Their mindset is, how do we get to war? That's the Patrick Clausen quote, the Israeli lobbyist who's on video. And I used his quote in my 2017 book, where he says, I frankly don't see how the president can get us to war with Iran. And he's talking about how he's unsure how the president, and this was like, it looked like it was maybe when George W. Bush was president. Look, it was old kind of. And he's talking about he's perturbed because he can't see how George W. Bush is going to be able to get the United States into a war with Iran. Not stop a war with Iran, but how he's mad because he won't be able to get us into a war with Iran. And he starts talking about Iranian submarines, and sometimes they go down and they might not come back up, and who would know why? And he did it exactly like that, in like in a super Jewish-y, you know what I mean, voice, the at the end, and it's on video, and you can find it. It's just Patrick Clausen, Israeli lunatic. I don't know, Iran, Israel. Search something like that. You'll find this guy's video, and you'll watch it, and you'll be like, "Oh my God, I can't believe this guy is explaining that he wants to start World War III by a false flag attacking an Iranian submarine." So it's like, once you see this with your own eyeballs on video, and you go, "Oh my God, like, they're really saying that?" Like, he's not drunk at a bar, caught on, he's not like one of those Project Veritas situations where you like got caught on a hot mic or anything. Like, he's at a podium talking to other people in the audience, explaining how he's upset that we can't start World War III 20 years ago. So you once you know that is the mentality of the people inside the operation, then when Christian asked me, "What do you think about World War III?" I go, "Unfortunately, it's filled with a million Patrick Clausens. And they all want war because there's a lot of money in it, and it remakes society, and it covers up crimes, and it covers up financial collapses and all these things. And it's all these just very, very fucked up incentive structures where the worst outcomes are treated the best. And I'm afraid, you know, I'm fearful that this is part of. I'm fearful that this is scripted, and that this is part of the script. You know what I mean?
That's kind of where I was kind of thinking with it too, because, for lack of a better term, since you kind of brought up the voice that he did at the end there, talking about that group and the way that they've moved through history, and just to specify, just like how the Freemasons work, I don't think it's the entire group. I think it's a matter of there's a group that's up at the top that kind of hides under the facade of everybody else going down, and everybody thinks that they're involved with the group, but realistically, the only ones involved are the ones up at the top. And it seems like
it's multi-level marketing of religion. You know
exactly. Yeah, it's a pyramid scheme.
High earners at the top. Everyone else is making jack shit at the bottom.
It's the pyramid scheme, the usual pyramid scheme with all this stuff.
So
but
most of like the Freemasons, like, "Oh, you're a Freemason, or you meet some guy at a party. So what are you, fucking Satanist or anything?" Like, dude, the majority of the people that are in Freemasons don't know anything about the very top level stuff. It's like
it's a boys club. They're just hanging out.
Need to know basis, but it is. I am glad that people are paying attention to that at least. But
yeah, I'm curious if these people are like shifting where their basis of operation is, because, you know, you got World War II. Obviously, there's a huge shift of the base of operations after the Weimar Republic and everything happened. So everybody moved over. They moved their whole scheme over to the United States, and it seems like we're getting to a point now where, as we were talking about earlier in the show, like everybody's kind of starting to get them figured out. And as soon as everybody starts getting them figured out, that's when all this anti-Semitic stuff starts coming up. So I'm kind of curious if they're using this as a new operation to be able to switch to their main base of operations somewhere else. And everybody kind of talks about this, you know, the U.S. not necessarily being like the world power that it has maintained through the years anymore, and that Russia and China are going to take that place. And I mean, if that is the case, it definitely seems like, you know, that group would probably have some luck probably shifting over to China, not so much Russia because Russia already kicked them out, but they could definitely shift over to China. But, you know, when it comes to war, I don't think the U.S. is ever going to be able to be fully taken over just because of how much of an advantage we have strategically from where we're placed. But if they move the dark operations somewhere else, then there's less fingers getting pointed at them here. So I think they want this to start just so they can hide under the facade of everything else going on to shift the bases somewhere else until they get figured out next time and the next big war starts back up.
Russia is under their control, by the way. That is one of the common denominators that links all these guys, is the Chabad Lubavitch control over Donald Trump, Netanyahu, Putin, Javier Milei. Whenever you see the guys with the black hats and the black beards and the travel in packs, and they're always taking pictures with them. Or you see the painting in the background behind Kennedy, the guy with the, you know, them air quotes. Russia is under their spell as well, unfortunately.
I mean, the whole basis of communism comes from that philosophy. So I guess that kind of, they pushed it out and then it just got hidden underneath a new facade. I mean, just like how that usually goes in most places. I mean, but it seems like, they kind of got to the point in the U.S. where it's basically like a new version of the Weimar Republic. And right after the Weimar Republic, everybody knows what happens after that. Once everybody starts getting angered, you know, it's either going to be them or they push the focus somewhere else. And it seems like with most of the time, they try to push the focus somewhere else. So as all this anti-Semitic stuff starts coming up, they're like, yeah, but look what they're doing over there. But look what they're doing over there. Pay attention to Iran. Pay attention to Ukraine. Pay attention to Israel. Pay attention to Russia. Pay attention to everything over there, not us over here.
And in some regards, it doesn't matter what you're arguing about, as long as you're arguing, as long as you're divided, as long as you're angry at somebody else. You know, if they can keep everybody in that sort of state of division, then the few can control the many. It's just a strategic move of theirs. And it works very well, especially with people who don't realize the power of suggestion, and they don't, you know, the sheeple out there that get caught up in the standing with Ukraine or whatever the new thing is. 6 feet social distancing, which is still hilarious to me that was going on.
We need to make him a universal shirt that says, I stand with the current cause. You'll probably make millions off of it.
Yeah. And, you know, there's a segment of society that's just going to go with the flow, and they're not going to give it much thought. Right. So I don't know. I'll tell you what, I am, as fearful as I am of World War III, I am optimistic about the role of the alternative media in getting, like, I don't know, just I think after COVID and after Biden, you know, Biden's healthy, best Biden ever. They play that a lot on OBDM. Joe Scarborough talking about, you know, I think he's the best Biden ever. That people have just finally decided that the mainstream corporate press is horseshit, and that they're no longer listening or watching or having anything to do with it. And they're sort of information free agents, if you look at it that way. And that they can come across a whole new world of information out there. And so that's what I think the alternative media, I think there's a lot of people that are like, just tell me what happened and not necessarily how you want me to feel, just tell me what the news is. And I don't know. I think there's just a real opportunity for normies to kind of fall into this stuff that we've been talking about for a long time, just because they're like, where do I go for, like, I don't know, just so I'm not going to get lied to? Go to Activist Post. Go. I mean, you know what I mean? Like,
anybody that doesn't have an agenda.
go get, yeah. Here's some podcasts to listen to. Like, here's some websites to go to. Check it out.
Inquiries of Our Reality will be right back after this brief commercial break, so stay tuned. And now back to the show. So for the little bit of time that we still have left, there's something that I definitely wanted to get into with you at some point, because I want to kind of get your views on this one. So talking about the independent media, it seems like one of the main things that's been talked about recently is the Great Replacement theory. And this goes universally, not just for the United States, but for Europe too. And from most people's perspective, they're basically trying to view it as basically trying to like push out the white race, try to get rid of the majority of the white race. And a lot of these podcasters that are claiming this are saying that like we only make up 8% of the world's population. But the reason I'm bringing it up is I kind of want to get your perspective on it, because it seems like with a lot of this stuff, there's a lot of stuff that is just intended to be thrown in there to try to get people riled up. And I feel like this could definitely go both ways. It seems like there is a lot of logic behind it, but it also seems like something that's intended to rile people up, especially considering how passionate a lot of independent media is talking about it. So I kind of want to get your views and opinions on this whole Great Replacement theory that everybody's been talking about. So
I had Dan Lyman on my show. He is the head of InfoWars Europe and Border Hawk News. And he had reporters in Croatia that were talking to the police there. And the police they were saying, like, what's the common, with these people that you're rounding up and you're catching, what's the common denominator? And they said, well, they all have these cards, these debit cards. And they said, well, who are the debit cards from? And they said, well, the cards are from Open Society Foundation, which is Soros. But they're reloadable. And Soros wasn't reloading them. The EU was. And so he's like, oh my God, like the EU is financing the migrant caravan up Western Europe. 100% being made to happen. So it's only theory. It's only conspiracy theory. It's a Kalergi plan, Great Replacement theory. It's like, no. This is what's happening. It's measurable. We can count the people. We can see this is happening in North America as well. And it's by design. And it's moving assets into position. It gives you Democratic voters in the US because everybody's going to vote Democrat, because that's sort of the implicit agreement. And even if they don't vote, some Democrat's going to find a way to vote for them, and they'll take care of it. But it's definitely a Democrat demographic situation. Brings in cheap labor. It brings in chaos. It Clower and Pivens your social programs like welfare, destroys them so that they can be rebuilt in a socialist paradise, whatever the fuck that means. But that's what they're always talking about. So these are like Bolsheviks. Like the way that this is a destructive ideology.
And if you think that there's a specific reason why it seems like they're bringing certain groups into certain places? Because obviously the U.S., like you're kind of mentioning, Democratic voters are bringing up majority of people from South America, but it seems like in Canada, for example, North America still, it's primarily people from India. Same with like the UK, for example. Like I've got two other buddies that are podcasters, Tom from Strange Brew and Aaron from First Class Horrorcast from the UK and one from Canada. And they said 99.9% of what they're getting is all people from India. So I'm kind of curious if it seems like there's certain areas that they're shifting certain demographics on purpose. Like we can look at it from the US perspective, but like what's the reasoning behind people in India going into Canada and going into the UK when you'd assume that it would probably be people from South America because they're trying to push the same idea and mentality because this is all part of, the British Empire. But like what?
It's like that in Minneapolis. Everyone there is from Somalia. And you're like, why? It's just like from the hottest place in the world to the coldest place in the world. Like why? And everywhere. And I've been there before. And it is like 15 years ago, and it was noticeable. It was like, damn, Rochester, like big time Somali communities there. It's like, why? I'm like, well, I don't know. They just decided. Everyone just decided, like the way the Mormons decided, like Utah was in Salt Lake City was their spot. Like sometimes I think they just click up and decide that that's where they're going to build their community. But it feels very artificial because it's being made to happen, and the Biden administration was financing it, and they were flying people in, and they were doing all these things whilst telling everybody, we don't have a problem. We don't have a problem. But like loading up airplanes and flying them in and putting them on buses and transporting them God knows where, and disappearing kids and things. I mean, this is not a game. Like this is horrible stuff. So I don't know. I mean, in the end, what winds up happening is that the poor people are always exploited by the wealthy, powerful people. And that I think is the worst part. I can't blame the people for wanting to come to the United States. I don't blame them for that. And in some cases, the United States has bombed their country. It's part of the reason why they've left, or destabilized their central bank or something, and done something to screw with their country and turn it into the sort of shithole that you have to pack up and walk somewhere else and leave. Like, so I don't blame them for wanting to leave, but it's like, you know that it will screw up the host country if you do it certain ways. And who was spending a lot of money on his Harvard scientist buddy to study population dynamics and evolutionary game theory was Jeffrey Epstein. Very, very concerned with figuring out the science behind moving large groups of people from place to place. So this all feels like it's by design to permanently modify the demographics of the United States. And I don't think that's conspiracy theory. I think that's just a measurable observation.
I mean, just to even extend on that a bit more too, at least I've noticed it a lot in my area, and I know that it's definitely hit like LA, for example, that there's this upspike in hard substance use, it seems. And even in like my area, I've noticed that it seems like the more immigrants that come in, they seem like they're kind of stabilized, they're working normal jobs, they're doing their thing. But on the flip side, I'm starting to notice like the people that were living here normally are starting to develop harder and harder drug problems, to the point where even my neighborhood, super nice neighborhood like 4 or 5 years ago, now it's gotten to the point where, like I was talking about before the show, like I got to watch my cameras outside because I have like crackheads and stuff walking around all the time. And it's gotten to the point, dude, where I'm sitting here at lunch today and I'm just sitting here eating my sandwich in the parking lot at Meijer, and I'm watching some kind of conflict going on with a car that's sitting up here where there's this Karen looking lady on the phone and there's this guy running around the car frantically. And I'm like, all right, it's probably like a fender bender or something. Next thing you know, ambulance rolls up, fire truck rolls up. Apparently somebody overdosed in this car, and everybody's it's become like a normal thing in the area. Like, it just seems like there's this upspike of that too, where as they're kind of bringing in these new groups to try to change the demographic of America, the people that are already here are starting to like give up, so to speak, on the system taking care of them, helping them, doing anything for them, where rather than, you know, becoming self-sufficient, like it seems like a lot of people are trying to do, where they just are getting this mentality of wanting to live away from the cities, off grid. They just fall harder into this drug problem, and they're almost like eliminating themselves by giving up.
Yeah. It's what Yuri Bezmenov talked about, the demoralization campaign. You subvert a nation without firing a shot, you know, by changing the culture, fabric, what's important to the people. And he talked about that with G. Edward Griffin. Back, you can find those videos where they look like they're going to go to Studio 54 after the interview. You know what I mean? And they're talking about, I could shower you with authentic information and photographs. Nothing. It won't change your mind. Like, you know, like talking about the process of how you break somebody down. And you look at this and these 4 steps to ideological subversion, and you go through it and you go, oh my God, like we have most definitely been put through this. Like literally step by step, we like society at large, but America in particular has been put through this, maybe even twice, I think, through the cycle, through the demoralization cycle. And, you know, you take a look at it and you go like, they're going to do it again. You know, that, and that's this fourth turning that you hear about, this sort of reimagining of the financial system, the fourth turning, maybe combined with a World War III situation. A lot of change. I'll tell you what, though. I think I'd rather be paying attention. I kind of joke about wanting, you know, take the blue pill, but I think I'd rather be paying attention with something as monumental as what we're set to go through, like a real shift in the way things are done. And like, if you're aware of it, I feel like you're in a position to either get out of the way of like the catastrophe part and or like really be in a good spot going forward, like positioned well because you saw this coming and sort of, you know, got your money out of the bank or whatever it was you did that was like proactive.
See, that's where I'm at. I'm with you. That is not as nice as it would be to be just oblivious and unaware. Like, I would rather be informed and know and at least be able to move out of the way of the moving train rather than just standing in the waiting for it to come at me while I'm like, all right, well, over here, it says that everything's going to be okay. And this sign says that everything's going to be fine. So if I just stand here, it means that everything's going to be fine. And I mean, even just ushering in a new generation, man, it's one of those things too, that it's like, you know, you get to a point where it's almost like you're not just doing it for yourself. You're almost like doing it for like the next generation too, because even you want your kids, for example, to, you know, come up with their own conclusions. You don't want them to just believe every single thing that you say just because, you know, you're their parent or whatever. You want to make them aware of things so that these cycles don't end up repeating. So it's like, regardless of you, it's something that almost goes beyond you when you start getting into it, that I wouldn't be able to morally like be able to shut back down and like watch my kids fall into the scheme of things. Like, I feel like once you break free of that, you have to remain free of that. Otherwise, again, these cycles are just going to repeat themselves. So like, once you're awake, it's like you have to do it for future generations. It's like there is no going back to sleep just for your sake, because it becomes something that you're doing for society as a whole rather than like just yourself being aware.
100%. Yeah. And I have to tell you, because I picked up my daughter from school like last year, and it was like Friday, and my wife was out of town, and so I picked her up, and she goes, "Can I ask you a question?" As we're like pulling it away from the school, I was like, "Yeah, why?" She goes, "We didn't go to the moon, did we?" And I go, oh, Friday night, we're going to get pizzas. We're going to watch some movies about this. I want to watch you. You know who Bart Sabrell is? You will. Don't worry. Don't worry.
Don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be right back with that deep conversation you crave. But just a quick reminder, if you might be interested in snagging some gear for this show, Bizarre Encounters, or any of your favorite creatures or topics, hop on over to the Open Minds Media merch store for a wide range of designs with new drops regularly, and t-shirts for the low price of $15.68 plus shipping. Check out the link to the store down in the show description. And now let's get back into it. See, I'll catch myself with this stuff. My daughter will ask questions, and she's 9, and then I'll start going down this rabbit hole, and then I'll have to look up and go, oh, wait, you're 9. I can't go down that rabbit hole too far. When you get older, I will fill you in with the rest of this. I'm always talking about the pedophile elite, and I tell her, so much about it, and then I can't tell her, what exactly the pedophile elite is. Just the fact of, we're out in public, you got to watch yourself. When we're out here, you got to watch yourself. You don't know who's involved with this stuff. It's a bigger scheme than what you ever think it could possibly be, but it's you don't want to scare them too much. But again, it's make people aware of things, because we live in a society now where it's it was always drugs. The way the government made money under the book, or, above the books, was off of drugs. And now we've moved to a point where it's instead of having all this overhead, I can just snatch a person and it's worth significantly more money. So now we've moved into a point where it's this isn't just a couple guys that have some weird fetish and they're kidnapping kids anymore like it was back in the 70s. This is a whole international ring of people that are involved, to the point where it's I've mentioned it multiple times on the show that there was a bust that happened in Detroit a couple of years ago, and it was 186 kids they found in this burned out neighborhood. There was one news story about it and nothing else about it. Nobody else said anything. There was 2 guys that they supposedly found there running this place, and they basically took a burned out neighborhood and started using all the houses and everything to basically stage kids to wherever they were going next. And it's again, news stories like that don't get talked about. So it's you just want people to be aware of stuff, but you don't want to go too far into it. But yeah, dude, I got to catch myself with her, because it's I'll start getting into stuff like that, and it's just all right, just be aware of people. If somebody's acting weird, stay away from them.
Yeah. I saw, when I was 8 years old, day before my 8th birthday, I was in the car. My mom had me in the passenger seat we'd just gotten a puppy that day. So I was in the car in 3:00 in the afternoon. This is 1980. And my mom had to run into it was just outdoor at the mall in the parking lot. She had to go into the department store, grab something, come back. And she was in for 10 minutes. When she came out, these 2 guys walked up on both sides, one on her side and one on my side. And as she opened the door, the dude pulled out a gun and put it to her head and said, "Move in or I'll fucking kill you." And I'm sitting in there just watching this. And my mom gets in, and as she gets in, she just slams the door real fast before he can get in and just starts hammering on the horn. And the dude was right there at my window. I was looking at this dude holy shit. He was trying to get in my door, and these dudes took off right after they did the horn.
Wow, talk about a brush with death, dude.
Dude. My mom said she saw in her head the newspaper headline, "They found her dead, raped body in a ravine." And she just thought, if I allow them to get in the car and move us, we are dead. So she just hammered on that horn, and dude, they wound up catching the guys. And I got to go do that thing that you see in all the movies that you think is fake, but is actually, I guess, real, where they walk them in the lineup with the bright lights, and you're in behind the 2-way glass, and they go, which one? And you go, number 5. I get to do all that.
Dude, I can't even imagine how horrifying that experience was. And that was earlier, as far as that was before all of this stuff started really taking off. So it's that's one of those situations where it was probably definitely going to be those guys, but it's like gravitated now into a time where it's like, those guys are just the guys that grab you. Like, they're not going to be the guys that do everything else on the back end of things. Like, they got guys that break you down mentally. They got guys that move you. Like, it's a whole multi-billion-dollar industry that's hidden underneath the scenes. Like, goes international. Like, I don't think people understand the depth of like how rooted these pedophile rings are, even in political standings in countries.
Oh, well, to add on something to my story that I probably is relevant as well. The two guys that were doing that, they were Marines. The two guys that tried to rob me and my mom were Marines. They were part of like a network at the Marine base that was robbing people with guns taken from the base.
So, that definitely brings in a whole different view. It makes me think of like Presidio
and the satanic shit that was going on through there, and the role of the Navy, and you know what I mean? You know what I mean? It's just there's a darkness to some of these upper level military organizations too.
I mean, people that blindly follow orders and become part of that military ideology, and they stop feeling like morals and they're just conducting a mission. I mean, at a certain point, it's like if you're running these dark operations, it's like you're definitely got to be grabbing from your own database. So I'm sure that there's probably a big number of people involved in this stuff that are ex-military, just because they may not feel that moral code anymore. Like, these are the type of soldiers that probably had to take down a kid in the Middle East because he was running at him with a bomb, and they just use that trauma that person experienced to just completely exploit the fact that they feel no morality over children or anybody anymore. They're just out for themselves, and at the end of the day, they're receiving a paycheck, and they utilize that. So, I mean, on top of the fact of once these people are trained, like, people aren't taking that into consideration. They think that, you get snatched by somebody grabs you, you can start screaming, you can start doing whatever, and somebody's going to come up and help you. But, what if you're in a area where you got two military guys that are grabbing you? There's not really anybody around. Like, you have no control over that situation at that point. You can punch and scream all you want, but those guys are trained to do stuff like that.
Oh yeah, man. I was. We would have been easily overpowered, in that situation.
Well, I guess with kind of a darker ending to the episode, because at some point, of course, you have to bring up the fact that the world does get pretty dark, but possibly leaving it on somewhat of a high note. As usual, man, I always like to end the show with some words of wisdom. So if there's any words of wisdom you might want to bestow on the listeners today in this world of chaos and turmoil, what might it be today, man?
Well, look, I'm just appreciative that I'm alive and healthy to witness the insanity. It's going to be frustrating, and it's going to be big changes, I think, coming. But as a writer, just paying attention to all the things that are going on, all the massive movements. It's like, it's tough to know what to focus on because there's so much going on. So I guess I'm appreciative that it's an interesting time to be paying attention. There's so much happening right now. And to be fair, in the past, there's been like years that just nothing of any great importance happened. But in the last 5 years, it feels like everything has been accelerated. So I'm glad I'm paying attention to it now. Because it prevented me from getting caught in the COVID stuff, because I knew about the vaccines. So I think it's important for people to take this information and help improve their lives, get them out of the way of like the state to the extent that you can. I know it sounds like I feel like I'm at an Acapulco.
So I guess
fuck the state, you just keep doing that. But it's like to the extent that you can move yourself away from the state, like make yourself less dependent, like any chance you get to do that, do it, because you just be better for it, and don't ever take government handouts. It's a trap. And it catches people that don't understand what the trap is.
the money's got to come from somewhere. That's what people don't think about.
It's got to come from somewhere. And there's strings attached, and it's all bad. But yeah, I appreciate you having me back. And again, we'll do it. I hope people will check out activistpost.com and bookmark it if you like your information on mobile. I didn't build an app. It centralizes control into the hands of Apple and Google.
A few moments later.
Oh, there's two Charlies. What happened?
I'm back.
Do you see your the second screen at the bottom? There was one that like you started trying to load one up and then it like popped in as a second screen.
Oh no, I didn't see that. Sorry, something just happened on my end and my internet just completely dropped out. I don't know why.
We were pulling on some strings apparently. You're talking about activist posts and telling people where to go to get the truth, so they have to cut you off.
Exactly. Yeah. Truth's so dangerous they have to kill your internet. Probably my stupid internet anyway. But yeah, and macroaggressions.io for anything about the podcast, and we're coming up on 10 million downloads, man. So after a little over 5 years, so I'm proud of that because I really thought I was talking to myself for a while. And I think I might. I think I probably was for at least the first 6 months. But it's been fun to have that outlet, and so I'm grateful for anybody who's checked out the podcast. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man.
We'll do it in a couple more months.
I say 3 months. That's about the marker when we got to start talking about some other chaotic stuff going on.
Exactly. That gives us 90 days for I don't know, World War III to kick off. Hopefully not.
Hey, with that though, there might be a new movement afterwards, actually. Hold that thought. We'll be right back after this brief commercial break. And now back to that deep conversation you crave. Just to bring up some last little bits before we end up wrapping up completely. So I'm sure that you've probably, being a writer, you've probably read a bunch of different stuff from Hunter S. Thompson. And recently I was going back over listening to the audiobook of the Hells Angels book that he wrote back in the 60s. And he was talking about this whole idea behind like one of the last like freedom movements in America, and basically how it was completely manipulated by the media, and they made them seem like they were all of these like awful guys. Don't let them come through your town. They're going to destroy everything, blah, 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 blah. And I was thinking about this idea about like, will there be another one of these like honest, true grit, like just freedom movements? And I'm hoping that there will be another emergence of this, but like you were kind of mentioning earlier in the show, it's hard when everybody can map your face no matter what place you go to, but not trying to say that, World War III is going to be anything positive or anything like that. But it seems like after some type of big conflict, the soldiers come back and they have this new mentality of fuck the government. We're going to start a new freedom movement. So maybe out of all the turmoil at the end of it, maybe we'll finally have maybe a freedom movement that might actually work, that, won't be completely manipulated by the media, because we have the opportunity now of independent media also being involved in this, other than just Hunter S. Thompson following them around and writing about it.
Yeah, there's for sure, there's an appetite for a freedom movement, and there will be interest in co-opting that movement as well. There'll be people sent in there to try and undermine any sort of success that they get. I think the best thing is to just build outside of the system. You can't change the world. You can change yourself. You can change your family. You can change like the people in your circle. You can go to these live events and connect with like-minded people. And some people are relocating and moving to like-minded communities and doing it that way. But I think I think that you just have to start with changing yourself, because that's where you'll have the most impact. And in doing so, maybe you can inspire other people to change themselves. But I have found that people change when they want to, and you really just can't make them. And you can only sort of be there at the right time when they're ready to, receive some information. Because a lot of the time they're not. I've unfortunately I've done it the hard way.
Just to solidify what you're just kind of saying a little bit too before we completely wrap up, just out of shits and giggles, everybody likes to mess with like ChatGPT and AI and just try to change what they are and how they respond to things. Just out of curiosity, after I had this whole thought, I altered ChatGPT to basically answer and respond as Hunter S. Thompson. And then I asked, theoretically, if somebody was to start a freedom movement in 2025, how would they go about doing this? And it gave me this super duper drawn out, Hunter S. Thompson type answer. But like the main focal points of it was, one, break away from social media and electronic devices down to the point where you don't even use a phone anymore. Start connecting with people on a smaller community base. And it basically said completely unfiltered language. Say what needs to be said to anybody that needs to be said and do it in a nonviolent manner. And I was just like, that's really funny that playing devil's advocate, it's like ChatGPT gives you the response that we've all been talking about. So clearly we're onto something with the idea. It's just a matter of how do you get that push to get people to want to stand behind this thing. And this goes into even like the taxation idea that, our country was basically founded on 3% taxation. And now we're up to, a third of our paychecks. Like, what is going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back that people will actually take that initiative to do these things? Because we have all the ideas, we have the mentality, but, it's hard for one person to stand up and nobody stand up behind them. It seems like we've gotten into a point with society where it's like everybody wants to stand up, but when it comes to the right causes for things, people aren't standing up in the right times at the right places.
In Barnum World, there's a part where I ask Natty Jones, why are you telling me this? Like, aren't you afraid this is going to mess up your game? And he said, the people, they're not going to do anything about it. I could tell them how the game works, but they're not going to do anything about it. And I think that there's truth in that. There's a lot of people, you could just tell they're not going to do anything about it.
The system's too complicated now.
It's
that people don't feel like they could do anything.
and in some respects, you can't. So, it's just all. Just always goes back to Yuri Bezmenov. Yuri was right. I have this meme. It was like that just says Yuri was right. It's like demoralization.
Ain't that the truth?
it explains so much of why the wheels seem to have fallen off. It's like, no, they ran a cultural revolution on you. They ran a color revolution on you, and broke the spirit of the nation.
Say now it's getting to the point now where it's like even within independent media, nobody knows who to trust because, once something becomes the main source, then of course there's going to be people that take advantage of that. So it's just, you never know where to get the proper information from now, unless it's like you honestly know the person and trust the person.
Yeah. And that's why I'm like, all right, people, I'm going to need you to go to Activist Post. I mean, shit. I'm inviting you to. Please come on and check it out. Like, there's information there. And then I think what happens is that you'll get a fever for the flavor of some of these writers like Caitlin Johnstone, who you'll read a lot at Activist Post, and you'll be like, she's a savage from Australia. She just despises the Zionists, right? And she's a really great writer, and she's super funny and over the top. And, come to Activist Post for just random news, and then you'll find particular writers that you'll wind up following their work, I think, and ultimately, hopefully, supporting them as well. So it's been a great networking opportunity for me to get people to come to one place where they can like find a variety of different writers talking about the sort of stuff that they're into. I'm pretty sure, I know probably half the people whose articles I repost, and the other half I just know their work over the years, but it's out there. There's good information. You just got to look for it. You just got to know where to look, I think.
An activist post is one of those places.
I do all the sort of hard work for I do all the work for you. You just go to one place and find it, and then tell a friend, because that's the thing. We get no love in the algorithm, of course. So we have to rely on word of mouth and people telling other people. But
Say, as usual, man, I always appreciate you coming onto the show, sharing your ideas and everything that's going on in the world. It's always an absolute pleasure, man. And I'm looking forward to, in the next couple months, we can do yet another update. And we'll get back to talking about the craziness in the world, man.
For sure. Thanks for having me.
If you guys enjoyed today's conversation and want to show some love, I'd definitely appreciate it if you guys wouldn't mind leaving a review or rating for the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any podcatcher you happen to use. Your continued support is what makes the show possible, and your opinions go a long way to help the show grow and improve. And if you know anyone who might enjoy today's episode in particular, share it with a friend. Grassroots support from listeners like you guys is exactly how this show grows. So thank you. And if anyone would like to get in touch with me for any reason whatsoever, you guys can email me at inquiriesofourrealitypodcast@outlook.com, or you guys can get a hold of me through social media. Instagram and Facebook are the two that I'm the most active on. Or you guys can also get a hold of me through the submission form, which is available off of the Linktree. And the last way you guys can get a hold of me is through calling or texting the hotline, and that number is 313-364-1551. And if you happen to miss that, it is available down in the show description. And if you guys have some free time, don't forget to go and check out the awesome friends of the show and our awesome friends with affiliate links, Dimension Devices, Oregon-ite, and Sticker Mule, with additional discounts and credits available. More information on those is also available down in the show notes. And every single thing that I mentioned throughout the show is all available on the Linktree, which is also available down in those show notes. And with that, hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. Hope today's show has connected some dots in your own reality, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Have a good night, everybody.
Reality isn't what it seems. I'm Dr. D's taking aboard a craft with a tractor beam. Is life a simulation or an astral dream? Aliens travel through black holes in different galaxies. Life is a bizarre odyssey, with a mic talking about philosophy. Well, Bigfoot is stalking campers as a Wendigo